Okay, as you know, in this DVD there are mostly the games of my attacks and tactical play. But now I would like to show you a different kind of game where I was actually fighting for the positional advantage and my opponent tried to create an attack to compensate his positional disadvantage. And actually it was quite an interesting and entertaining game. So I was white, my opponent was Dmitry Sitnikov, international master from Siberia. It was Russian league, first round. I prepared a little bit for my opponent and saw that he almost always plays knight c6 in Sicilian, and he mostly goes for this Sveshnikov variation, e5, knight b5, d6. Okay, to be honest, I think that the best way to challenge this Sveshnikov variation is to play c4, but then very long positional game starts. So when I was studying this opening quite a lot 10 years ago, I also played it with black sometimes. For some reason, I always concentrated mostly on knight 1 to c3, because this was the way the most of grandmasters played. So somehow this variation knight 1 to c3 stayed better in my memory than the system with c4. So a6, knight e3, b5, knight d5. Okay, so far nothing new. Now black has the choice between several possibilities. One of them is knight c7. This move was played by me many times. c4, knights are exchanged. Takes, knight takes c4, and white's trump is his pawn majority on the queen side, and trying to get a passed pawn one day, and black, since he has one pawn more on the king side, he will try to use it for possible attacking of white king. In my opinion, this position is slightly better for white, so it's not advisable for black to go for it. But 10 years ago I was not yet sure about this, and I played some games as black. Some of them I even won, but I also won the games with white like this. Then the second choice here is to play knight f6, after which white can either go for classical Sveshnikov variation, which is considered to be relatively equal by recent theory, or play knight takes f6 and then quickly play c4. Okay, so these are two main options by black, most popular, and there is a third one, which is the sharpest one. And when my opponent played this, I realized that I have very little concrete knowledge about this, and this was of course disturbing, because I thought that then my opponent could catch me to some of his preparations or analysis. Before he played knight f6, so this was what I concentrated my preparation. So after knight g7, white doesn't have much choice. White plays c4 and black goes knight d4. So practically black gives up the pawn on b5. Knight takes d5, pawn takes d5. And as far as I remembered, now the main move for black was bishop e7 and then going for castle. I think this I checked before the game and established that it was good for white, but my opponent thought for a while and played the move which I didn't expect at all. He played g6, and it's very logical, because okay, if g6, bishop g6, bishop g7 was not logical plan, nobody would play king's Indian, nobody would play dragon, nobody would play pig defense. So why not here? And we also have this knight on d4, like in king's Indian, which is a very strong piece. So now I have to start thinking and what I can do. Well, I already have an extra pawn, but I'm behind in development, and also sometimes, like in Volga Gambit, these b2 and a2 pawns are not very strong. Okay, so I decided to try to simplify the position a little bit, and I played bishop e3. After bishop g7, I took his knight and played bishop d3. As far as I could study this position on the computer afterwards, for some reason computer was suggesting to give this check, to change queens and to exchange pawns on b5. So computer was saying like black has enough compensation for the pawn because of these two pawns. I'm not sure I agree completely with that. But okay, that's another game. So my opponent castled and I castled too. And black played queen g5. The active move, aiming to start attack against my king. Well, I cannot say that I felt very comfortable this moment. On one hand, I knew I am pawn up. The pawns on d6 are weak, d4 can be weak too. And in the future, I could promote my pawns a and b to the queen. But I need one thing for that. I need to change queens, or at least to simplify the position somehow. Black will never agree to exchange queens. For example, if I play now queen c1, he will probably just take the d5 pawn first, and okay, only after queen c6 he will be forced to do that, but then it's not so clear whether my pawn on c6 would be that strong, because now I'm not going to get the passed pawns so easily. And after d5, my knight is not good, and so on. Okay, this position could still be considered, but I think the problem is that after queen c1, my opponent would probably not even take the pawn, would probably just move his queen to h5 and create some attack in different way. Also, I realize that whenever I take on a6, he will probably just take it back, and my knight is very bad on a3. So, okay, now I think I should have done still something of that kind, and not and maybe knight c2 in order to bring my knight to d3. It's probably slightly better for white in any case. However, taking on a6 could have one more little drawback, that it would allow bishop g4 and force me to play f3. And then black can actually go with the bishop back, or even to c8 and then try to get back the pawn, and now I already weakened my king. Still, most probably it's not enough for black to have the compensation, so I should probably have not been afraid of any ghosts and should have just taken this pawn. So therefore my choice in this position should probably be considered incorrect. I played queen f3 and my opponent started already an activity on the king side. So now, for example, he wants to play bishop g4, queen g3, h4, and after queen takes d6, bishop e5. Maybe it's not a big threat for the computer, but it's definitely something that human gets afraid of. And I played h3. Not sure whether it's the strongest move, but I completely forgot that now black can start playing on the queen side again, just like in all the attacking games, for example, the attacking games that I showed from Rui Lopez, you play on one side, but then you turn to the other side and start playing there. And okay, if knight takes b5, black could play bishop b7, attacking the pawn on d5, and probably his compensation for the sacrificed material would be already nearly sufficient. I do not. Yeah, another chance, another good possibility for black after knight takes b5 is simply to play bishop e5, and now creating all the threats of attack like bishop g4. We will look closer at these ideas in the game. So here I started realizing how strong my opponent's attack is. So somewhere I disregarded it before, and now it was like no possibilities to go back. So after having serious thought, I decided that I cannot play knight b5, bishop e5, because then I have no counter-attacking ideas. So if I cannot attack myself, at least I can think about counter-attack. And okay, the following part of the game is more defense than counter-attack, but it's still a very active defense. You will see what I mean. I took with the bishop on b5. He played rook b8. Okay, in order to win the tempo, so I don't play bishop c6 with tempo, I played b3. He played bishop e5, I played bishop c6. Now the critical position arose. My opponent played very interesting attacking game until here, but now he wants to prepare his decisive blow and plays king g7, which proves to be the waste of tempo. He had a very strong move, bishop g4. Now I must take his bishop. He takes it back. So, if I play queen e4, f5 would only make black's attack stronger. So I cannot give tempo like this. I have to play queen d3. Now, okay, queen h4 is obviously nothing, it's g3. So, but black brings the rook to the attack. So imagine the situation. Black queen, rook and bishop in the attack, white nothing in the defense. Even queen cannot be said that is defending white king. Fortunately, white has an extra knight, although it's far away still from the game, and a possibility to hide the king. So we start releasing the square of f1 for the king, because I think we cannot even change the move order. If we play knight c4, we get bishop h2 check, king takes h2, queen h4, king g1, rook h8, queen takes d4, no, f6, queen h7 actually saves white. Okay, that was a bit too much from black part, although it also shows how strong can be black's attack in general. But the problem is that bishop h2 check might be not the only, even not the only attacking way. So, okay, if black plays rook h8, anyway white cannot take on e5 because there is queen h4, so white would have to release this square anyway. So it's probably better to play rook e1, rook h8, knight c4. But as I said, it's an active defense. I am trying to at least change my passive until now knight for his active bishop. But black can go rook h2, bringing another rook to the attack, and queen and two rooks, really getting horrible. Okay, at this position I know how to save with white. after I consulted it with computer. What would happen in the game, I honestly don't know. But right now, my only way is to show the defense. So white takes the bishop. Okay, at least one attacking piece less. Rook h8, king f1. So now, fortunately, giving checks is not so strong for black. King goes and attack more or less stops. Although even here, well, it has to be quite precise, but yeah, king c2, queen f2, rook e2, well, and white basically wins. But the right move for black here is to take the knight with the pawn. Okay, we lost, I say we, in this case I'm talking from black side, because I like attacking, so even though I was white in this game, but when showing it I can talk from black side as well. Black lost one attacking piece, the bishop, but the pawn which took the bishop became also very strong, almost the power of the whole piece. So now, very important thing what white should do in this position. White should play d6, not even care about this pawn, but bring the bishop into defense. Defend some important squares. And after d6, king e2, queen takes d6, rook a c1. The general feeling is that white can defend this position. And black has only one pawn for the bishop. Still a lot of practical chances, a lot of possibilities to create some mess, but at least the objective evaluation of this position is in white's favor, although still it's extremely complicated. So I can conclude that my strategy in this game was not that wrong, that I was not losing under attack, but he could create it and it would be very dangerous. Okay, now I set up again the critical position. So I have set up the critical position again, and as I said, instead of the strongest continuation bishop g4, my opponent played king g7, obviously wanting to play bishop g4 next move. So here I could make the difference with the previous variation, but for that I had to find the following. Rook fe1, okay, rook has to go there anyway to free that square for the king. But after bishop g4, well, now in fact bishop g4 is already a serious mistake. But that also means that serious mistake was king g7, because, okay, white has an extra pawn, white is about to consolidate, so white will have big advantage anyway. So bishop g4 is a mistake, but it's also like a last chance. hg, hg. And now I immediately change my passive rook for his active bishop. Okay, obviously, if queen takes, I take also his dangerous pawn, and then it will be not so difficult to parry the attack. Or maybe even, well, here rook h8 is still the move to recon on. But okay, I played g3. Ah yes, my next move will be knight c4 attacking the queen. Okay, nothing is easy, but probably the attack will be stopped finally. So for example, rook h5, knight c4, queen f6, and yeah, and then something like queen f4 here, trying to change the queens immediately. After taking, rook h8, king g2, white is just in time. Okay, even these moves were not so easy to find. But So, but after rook takes e5, my opponent played the more natural pawn takes e5, and now very important move, queen e4. So there is a very big difference between the queen on e4 and the queen on d3, because black is stopped, he cannot play f5. So now the only thing is left for black is to double rooks on h5 like in all previous lines, but it's no longer the same story. So I play knight c4, wanting to play queen takes e5 check, so he played rook h5, and I played g3, clearly making it that if he plays rook h8, I will play d6, and with my queen on e4 and bishop on c6, I perfectly protect h1 square and the whole black's battery on h file, and all does not mean much, and he cannot make any serious mating threats any longer. So finally, the idea of taking with the bishop on b5, bring a knight to c4 and bishop on c6 worked perfectly in this game, so I could set up the right defense. And obviously, that if black has no mating ideas anymore, he only has rook against bishop and knight, and also white has passed pawn on d6, passed pawn on b3. So my opponent understood that his position is lost and he resigned here. Well, it was a pity for him, because if he played bishop g4 one move earlier, the position would be much more complicated than this. Still, after the game, when I just told him why didn't he play bishop g4, he realized that this was better, and then he said, Alexei, I thank you for the lesson. Okay, I think he's simply too modest player, and therefore he didn't find the best attacking continuation. He should lose respect to his opponents a little bit. Then next time his attacks will be brilliant. Okay, after finishing this so-called defensive game, I would like once again to turn to attacking examples.